Brad, I just got back from Vegas. I'm so tired.
I'm sorry.
It's real dry. It snowed. It rained.
What?
It was like shirt sleeves weather. I got the entire thing.
It snowed?
It snowed just a little bit. I saw flakes from that hotel window.
What if it snowed in Las Vegas? Wow.
Yeah. I've been there. It is not unheard of for it to snow. I've had it snow when I was there for CES before. Not like accumulation or anything, just some flakes falling.
It can't snow in the desert.
I mean, look, as long as it's less than 20 inches of precipitation a year, it's still a desert. It doesn't matter what the precipitation is.
Cron ran a headline yesterday that almost verbatim quoted the "What if it snowed in San Francisco?" with this nonsense that's going on here.
Oh, we just saw Grapevine is closed this morning at I-5, like where you go up the mountain to drive to LA.
I swear I did not plan to come into this podcast talking about the weather.
What's up with the weather? No, it's weird. Weather's weird right now.
It's true. Was Dice also weird?
Dice is as game conferences go, Dice is weird. We've had multiple friends who have gone in the past and have told us about it. And it is a conference that I participated in entirely by sitting in bars and hotel lobbies and suites talking to people. I didn't see a floor at all. I didn't see any talks.
That's about my understanding of what Dice is from over the years.
I could have gone to the awards show last night, but instead I chose to fly home at 9 o'clock in the morning and be not in Las Vegas anymore, which is my favorite part of going to Las Vegas.
Yep. How long were you there? Like hour count? I
got there on Monday night and I left Thursday morning, which is like 55 hours or something. It was
nice. You made it.
Too many.
The 72 is my personal window.
Oh, 48. I'm a 48.
Well, okay, look, I don't hate Vegas. Vegas is cool. It's just dangerous. And I started to say the less time in Vegas, the better. And I don't quite mean it that way, but
I covered 10 CESs, I think, something like that, but enough to know better. And that usually involved going and spending like 7 to 9 days in Las Vegas. And I will tell you,
holy shit,
the right number of hours for me to stay in Las Vegas after doing that for a long time is 0. I'm fine never going again.
9 days in Vegas.
It's hell. In wintertime. So it's not even like you can go, like, at least if you're there in the summertime, you can go out to the pool and like some hotels, the pool's a real scene and that's not relaxing. But some hotels is just like you go lay at the pool and you get some sun and you're like, okay, I feel a little bit better. I'm gonna have a Bloody Mary and go back in and do this shit some more.
A pool in Vegas is where I randomly saw Dennis Rodman running around with what looked to be about a 10-gallon bucket
of
empty. He was just filling it up in the pool and just going around and dumping a giant bucket full of pool water on people.
Yep, that sounds right. That's Vegas. I had some real good soup dumplings, though.
Hey, look, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad. Hello.
I should have called you Virtual Brad.
No, I'm out. I escaped.
Did you die?
I'm back in the real.
Okay.
I did fall once in Horizon Call of the Mountain while hanging on the side of a mountain.
In real life or in the game?
No, in the game.
Okay.
But
I've fallen out of my chair playing VR games before.
Oh, I said yes. No, I guess that sounds bad. I've not done that.
I've done a lean. I think the first time I played Echo Arena, they had to have spotters in there for that game, and I fell over. They caught me. It was nice.
That's the white glove. That's the concierge VR service.
Well, it was before when we were playing that game the first time. It was before they had any of the hey, don't smash into the wall stuff.
Okay,
that came into the framework of VR hardware at some point after that. So like they put you on, those mats that like you put on the bed of the pickup truck that are thick to protect the paint so you don't gouge up your pickup truck. They'd put a group of those out that was the playable area, and they often would have you take your shoes off so you could feel the edges on the socks. And then but some of the stuff, if you like Echo Arena is zero gravity, so it's like Ender's Game, like you're flying around these zero gravity spaces and holding on to things. You want to lean to reach and grab something, and like it's real easy to lean too far and just eat shit. Mm-hmm. So they had a spotter.
True, very true. Wait, hey, we were both there at the beginning, you might say.
You were more at the beginning than me, man.
Was I?
I tried to get into that E3 demo when Carmack was demoing Doom 3, and they look in 2012, which is when I think that would have been.
Yeah, I mean, I could look the video up right now, as a matter of fact, on giantbomb.com.
No one at E3 gave a shit about Tested.com's VR coverage at that point in the game.
I see.
Yeah.
I think that's about right. Keep talking. I'll find it.
Yeah,
there it is. Nope. Yes, that was E3 2012. Yes. I'm very flattered that footage of me and John Carmack and that duct taped prototype VR headset made it into Digital Foundry's review of PSVR 2, it seems. So
that was the one. If it's the same one that I saw at PAX later that year, I believe it was a pair of ski goggles that had some screens duct taped onto them. Or it was a ski goggle frame with the screens and the head tracking stuff tacked on.
That looks, now that I'm looking at this, the headband part has got some extreme graphics on it.
Oh, the headband was absolutely a ski goggle headband. Yeah,
definitely looks like the kind of thing you might want to sport on the slope.
Well, and the weird thing was you couldn't wear glasses inside it.
Yes, I can see my face from over a decade ago here. The rubberized kind of enclosure is like bolted right onto your face. Did we use the same prototype headset months apart?
My understanding is that there were a handful of them, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
So when I saw it, a friend of the pod, I think Steve Lynn maybe was like, "Hey, if you want in, I've got an appointment. You can come see this thing with me, and we should check this out." And I was like, "Hell yeah, where are you?" And I went up to this little room off of the side of one of like the elevator alcoves at PAX West. And I think Palmer Luckey probably did the demo. I can't remember. But when I realized I couldn't put glasses on inside it, I was like, oh man, I'm completely hosed because I have terrible vision. Like I'm like -8 in both eyes.
Oh my God.
Which means that like that time the focal length was like 2 inches in front of my eyeballs. So I thought I'd be fine.
Is prescription, is that a linear scale? I don't know.
I don't know how that works. I was bad at the optics section of college physics, it turns out.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
If that is linear, then your eyes are like twice as bad as mine. And I can't see more than a foot in front of my face.
Yeah, I correct pretty well, and it's gotten better as I've gotten older. As my lenses get brittle, my prescription gets friendlier until the bifocals come into play.
Well, hey, now that you've talked about corrective lenses, you've reminded me of another bullet point I should add to this list about the PlayStation VR 2. Which
is that what we're talking about today?
That's yes. As a matter of fact, yeah, it's a pretty significant hardware release. You certainly have spent some amount of your life dealing with VR.
Yeah, it's funny. Since I stopped working in it, I stopped caring about it at all and haven't really paid any attention whatsoever.
Okay, well, thanks for being here.
No. Look, VR's in a weird place, right? Because like I'm not going to support meta endeavors, right?
Okay, that's a principled stance that I can respect.
The Quest is out, and I have a relatively small house, and I don't have a reason to have a whole room dedicated to it anymore. So, with the exception of when I sometimes fire up the racing stuff, like the sim racing stuff, my index is in a box over about 3 feet to my left. And the PSVR had been kind of moribund for the last little bit until just now. So
I had gotten to the point where I didn't even really want to get mine out and set it up anymore. It was such a hassle with multiple cables and that breakout box, and the tracking never quite worked right for me.
It was a lot. I never had to, it's funny. You and I talked about this a lot in the past, but I never had trouble with the tracking on the PSVR one, but just the inherent nature of the accelerometer, gyroscope, and one point of outside data for the hand controllers. Like the head tracking was great. The hand tracking was fine in the up and down and left and right, but anytime you had to go in or out of toward the screen, it just wasn't very good.
Yes, the Z axis was rough.
Yeah, so it seems like they looked at what was going on and kind of made the thing that is good now for the PlayStation VR stuff, right?
It's basically the stuff that's on PC now, right? I mean, anybody who listens to Nextlander stuff has heard me say this like twice already, but it seems like it's basically at parity with what's out there on the PC. Since this is a technical podcast, I will say I went out and looked up the definition of slam tracking right before this.
Oh, yes.
Which I believe is involved here.
Yeah, so that's what most places use for most people use for inside out tracking, and it involves taking camera images and comparing the offsets based on the images that are offset based on where that knows the cameras are on the headset, right?
Yeah, it's funny. The Wikipedia page for slam tracking, simultaneous localization and mapping, right? That's the same SLAM, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm bad at acronyms generally.
The computational problem of constructing or updating a map of an unknown environment while simultaneously keeping track of an agent's location within that environment.
Yeah.
Which sounds about like what we're talking about here. Do you think is that applicable to robot vacuums? Do you think are there robot vacuums on the market that can build a layout of a space as they navigate it over time?
Well, that's why Amazon bought Roomba, right?
Oh, because they want.
I don't know if they're using SLAM or infrared, ranging or whatever. But
wait, are you saying Amazon wants to amass a map of floor plans of homes across the country?
I think Amazon wants to gobble up all of the data that it possibly can. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
But like that's definitely something that people use in robotics.
Yeah.
I don't know about Roombas. Roombas, like the last time I had a Roomba, it's been 15 years probably, but it just whacked into stuff and turned a random number of degrees until it found something else to whack into, and then turned a random number of degrees.
Yes. We've got a D-bot that's like 5 or 6 years old, and that it does the same thing. And that's why I was wondering is like, I wonder if you could make one that didn't just randomly drive around until it runs into stuff all the time. And if it actually could build a map and then vacuum more efficiently. Yeah.
It's one of those things. I wonder if it actually would be better. Because it may be that the random bouncing is actually highly effective at finding crumbs, but I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, it's possible. Anyway, ours tends to cover the same ground like 5 times every time it's out.
Yeah,
which is kind of useless. Anyway, virtual reality.
Yeah,
OLED screens.
Yeah, OLED screens are nice. It turns out you get better blacks.
Yes, absolutely. It's 2040 lines per eye per screen.
Did you notice screen door effect on the?
No,
these are high resolution screens.
Maybe we don't need to sit here and go through every spec on this thing. Maybe it's better to talk experientially.
That's what I've always found with the VR stuff,
because you have certainly spent your share of time with this stuff. So yeah, that was one of the very first things I noticed when I put this thing on was no screen door effect. Which you tell me, I've always just assumed comes from the screen being low resolution enough that you can kind of see the seams between pixels.
It's a combination of the optics and the resolution of the screen. Okay. There are certain types of screen, like LCOS screens generate, and OLED screens generate more, like the area of each pixel is more filled with
the like emissive surface.
The emissive surface is larger. Yeah.
Okay.
With an LCD screen, you have a backlight that's emissive, and then that's being filtered. And the thing that supports the cells that does the filtering on a per pixel basis has to be is visible. So on OLEDs, you should have much less screen door than you would on a, but also higher resolution fixes the problem as well.
Right. Anyway, yeah, like basically no screen door effect. I saw the term for this yesterday and I forgot to make a note of it, and it's escaped my mind. I kind of a grain, which I believe may be sort of inherent to OLED screens is what I was reading.
Well, OLEDs, yeah, they have like, sometimes you can see the subpixels a little bit.
It's weird. I mean, granted, this is right in your face, so it's not like you're going to see this on a TV at 10 feet or whatever, but it almost is visually kind of reminds you of film grain a little bit.
Huh. That's interesting.
I don't know how to characterize it or what's causing it. It's not a bad thing, but like, if you look at a completely white field, you are going to see a little bit of this kind of grainy quality, but it's much less pronounced than a screen door effect. And I don't mind it at all.
I mean, in my experience, generally at full white or full black, most displays are going to have some sort of an issue.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also not something that's very visible at all when you're playing an actual game.
The headset I've spent the most time with recently is the Index, which is an LCD, and it definitely has a little bit of a screen door. You can help that stuff with optics. There isn't a grain, but like the LCD panels almost always have problems with blacks. So yes, there's a little bit of a grayness or some light bleed around the edges of the panel.
Right. They have not revved the Index since it came out, have they?
Nope. No need to, probably.
Although actually maybe it's not as old as I thought. It's like getting around the time the pandemic started, right? I think In fact, I think I remember like an index showed up in the office like the week after we started working from home. So maybe it actually has not been that long.
So I got mine in around the time Alex came out. Because I'd had the index controller, like it came out, and like the Steam Deck, it came out and it was a little bit hard to get for a while. You had to wait on a list for a while,
right? Yes, I remember that now.
Even before the pandemic, and then around the time Alex came out, they were like, "Hey, we'll ship headsets, and you could get them more reliably."
Right. Okay. Here's a question for you. Knowing Valve as you do, you're something of a Valve whisperer, right?
I mean, I worked with somebody who worked at Valve for a long time, and I worked with Valve a lot. Yeah.
Odds in your mind that they port Half-Life Alyx to the PSVR 2?
I don't. Man, that's a Sony whispering question more than a Valve whispering question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they had that they did that Portal thing, right? Where Portal 2 came out on both the PlayStation 3 and the PC, and then it became kind of fraught, I think. I don't know.
That was well over a decade ago. Like, yeah, for the latter part of the PS3, they're like Steam ran on the PS3 for certain games. But that's been over a decade ago now. I don't know if
I don't know. My guess is that if Valve wanted to port, if Sony was like, "Hey, we'd like you to bring Alex to the PSVR 2," my guess is that Valve would want something like, "Okay, well, we'll do that as long as the PSVR 2 plugs into a USB-C port on your PC and becomes a PC headset."
Well, so that is like a major bullet point in these notes I have made here. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Because of course, if that was getting official support from the hardware maker, that would be dramatically easier and faster to implement.
Yeah, like I mean, so much of what makes Alex good are the hand controls. Also, how good is the, like, I don't know how good is the PSVR 2 in like a full room situation.
So
because Alex is a full room game. Right?
Okay, so you know what I wish this thing did. So it's got a pretty nice utility when you set it up for mapping out the playable area.
Yeah,
I know that like the Quest has had this since the first Quest and stuff, but So when you put this thing on, if you ever go out of bounds or there's a button you can hit to force it on the headset, or when you're just setting stuff up and it can't show you game, it'll switch to the inside out cameras so you can see what's around you.
The view of the world. Is it gray or color?
It's gray.
Okay.
It blew my mind the first time I saw it because, it's a 3D view of the room around you, except the scale is really strange. Everything looks smaller and farther away. So
if they do it right, then it should look just like you're looking through your eyes. I mean, lower resolution.
It's not that different. It's just everything looks a tad bit farther away than real life.
Yeah.
So when you do that, it actually has you turn and it paints the environment. It paints your room with a bunch of polygons, which looks cool as it's kind of building a map. And it'll just stop when it's satisfied it's got enough data. And then after that, it'll show you the boundary it decided you should have, and you can paint the boundary bigger or smaller with the controller. Very elegantly. It works quite well. What was your question about the room scale? Do you
have to do that every time you turn it on? Like if you move if you have like a footrest or something and you move it, will it recognize the room still, or do you have to redo it?
As somebody who has been playing it in the living room and also streaming it in this office, I can answer that question. As long as it's in the same place every time, you don't have to do that again. It's only when it detects that you have moved it to a different space, it'll make you recalibrate.
Like the early Quest stuff, when I had that, Chloe would walk through the room and she would make it her just presence in the room when she was laying there would make it think that the room had changed enough it needed to do a retrigger.
Interesting.
And she wasn't like a big dog. She weighed 25 pounds. So but yeah, my question was about the
room scale.
Yeah, like are you walking, like, okay, just to be clear, you can play Alex standing in the middle of a room and just bend down and pick up and use the turn controls and stuff like that, and not turn and not walk or anything.
Yeah, and the little bit of Alex I played, that's basically how I did it, because it was in this room where there's I don't know, 3x5 to move around, maybe.
Yeah.
So the thing I was gonna say that I wish this did is when you build that playable area, it'll say at the end, here's what you have room to do in this. And it's sitting, standing, and room scale.
Okay.
And it defines room scale. I wish I had written it down. I think it's something like, this is weirdly specific, 6.7 feet by 7 or something like that.
Oh, it's probably 2 meters by 2. Yeah, it's 2 meters by something.
Oh,
yeah,
that
it has to do with your arm span. So if you're 6 feet tall, your arm span is 6 feet.
I see.
And you need to have a square that's at least 6 feet by 6 feet, or else you're going to do bad things.
The thing I was going to say I wished it did is if it can tell a size threshold like that, I assume it can basically approximate what the space is. I wish it would tell you how big your playable area actually is.
It should be. It has that information.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's in there.
I just don't think they expose it.
Yeah,
which it would be
weird choice.
Or basically, what I'm saying is, it would be nice to know how far short I am falling of their definition of room scale.
It's like to see where the red is. Yeah.
In fact, so there's an interesting issue. There's a game called What the Bat, which let me check.
I think that's a PlayStation only game. I've not heard of that.
No, it's on Steam. It came out in November, so it's not been out that long. They had a bug, actually, which I don't think they have fixed yet, where the game was trying to force you to use room scale. It was basically saying, hey, if you are not hitting room scale dimensions, you can't boot this thing. Sorry. And so I fudged my playable area to be significantly bigger than I had actual room for.
Yeah.
Just to get it to boot. Again, they are patching this. It's an issue, a known issue.
That's a classic VR trope. Is this from the golf people?
I believe that might be right.
Yeah, from the creators of What the Golf. Yeah.
Yes, this is the What the Golf developed. It was cool. What I played of it seemed very clever and cool. It's just that, again, my boundary was like halfway into my coffee table and past my television. But all I was going to say is I wish you could see when you don't make room scale. I wish it would say like, hey, here's your actual size. Here's how much you're falling short of that. But no other game that I've played on this thing has required room scale or even anything close to it. So it's not actually a huge deal.
Yeah. I mean, the room scale for looking at the trailer for that game, the reason they want you to have room scale is so you don't break anything.
Right. Sure enough, that was the one time I smashed my hand into my TV, which was not great.
Ouch.
But again, I was pushing it too far just to get that thing to work.
Yeah, I've walked into walls before doing the same thing. Like I cheated because on Steam, of course, you can just open up the config file and move your wall out a little bit further.
Right.
And then you just have to remember which wall is which. And it's the moment you forget that, then you walk into the wall like a dope.
Yeah. Yeah. So this thing is pretty configurable. And I'm sure, again, this is a PC thing as well on the newer headsets. But if the headset or one of the controllers gets close to what it has defined as the boundary, it'll start popping the grid up around you.
Of course.
And a big red highlight will appear. But the thing that was new to me is kind of the second your headset crosses the boundary, it cuts you out of the game and drops straight to the cameras.
Oh, that's good.
So basically, the instant that you go outside of what you've defined as the area, you see what's around you again, and your brain immediately goes like, "Oh God, I have to stop," which is fantastic, and it's why I have started painting my area maybe a little conservatively. I give myself like half a foot on each side.
I was just say the thing that I found over the years is you don't want to go all the way to the wall of your room. You want to you want to give yourself a little bit of buffer, and if you have a place like the door in my office is often like 2/3 open. So that whole area became verboten for VR because I'd end up punching the edge of the door, which it turns out really, really hurts.
Yeah.
It's bad for controllers too. Who knew?
The only real issue I've had, I hope this is okay. I went a little too far for the cord once, and it was a lighting issue. Lighting is maybe a little picky. I'm sure you've experienced this with Inside Out. They warn you during setup that overly bright light will confuse the tracking. They did not mention that too dim also is a problem, and you can't tell really how bright things are in there. There's a weird kind of negative exposure effect in there, and it's hard to tell that it's too dark unless you take the headset off.
Well, if you think about it, when they turn the ISO up on the sensor to get more pixels, to get more light in, then the graininess on the camera sensor goes way up.
Yeah. So
right. Your effective resolution for the slam stuff goes down.
Yeah. So I was playing it around dusk, and there was plenty of light when I put it on, and then all of a sudden things started getting really grainy to the point it actually grained out so hard I could not see anything around me. But anyway, I was kind of like creeping around trying to look down the hall and stuff with it, and I went a little too far for the cord and kind of yanked my PS5 on the USB-C ports at a little bit of an angle, which I'm a little concerned about.
Does it still work?
It works fine. It has
probably
no issues. The USB-C cable still snaps in reasonably tightly.
I'm surprised they don't have a quick release on that. That's kind of surprising.
Yeah, that would be nice. I was kind of thinking that.
I mean, you could probably get a short extender and make your own kind of quick release.
Yeah, this is a total aside, but I was reading recently that the locking mechanism on a USB-C port is on the female end, not the male end, which is the opposite of a lightning cable. On lightning, the locking part is on the. So if something breaks, you're just out a cable and not a port.
Oh, well, that's nice.
No, yeah. For lightning, it is. For USB-C, it's not.
Oh.
That's what I'm. Yes. So if you break a USB-C port, you're in trouble.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're good at soldering, right?
Anyway, sure.
Well, so on the headset side, on the face, like is the IPD, the distance between pupils, adjustable?
Yes.
Physically, or are they doing it in software?
No, there's a mechanical dial on the top of the headset that just moves the optics back and forth, and there's a nice little utility in there that's just like you see it moving and you see your eyeballs. So it's got eye tracking as well. I've used headsets with eye tracking, but not much. Okay, so it also uses the eye tracking as you're adjusting the IPD. You can see they're little cartoonish eyeballs. They're not, they're nothing realistic, but you see where your eyes are looking and you see them blinking and stuff like that, and you see kind of the diameter of the lenses as
so it's
you
something
move the IPD.
Like if you hand a headset to another person, they just turn the knob until the thing pops up. They turn the knob and it's easy to do.
It takes 1 minute to adjust, and
that's awesome.
So you basically move the lens cutouts over the eyes, and then it'll pop up a little check mark or whatever when it thinks you're aligned nicely.
It's honestly, that's one of the things that I think Facebook has mucked up with the Quest, because those are all software IPD adjustment. They move the screen, the images on the screen, which means that the optics have to be a little bit muddier. And so that's really cool.
Let me just ask, since we're talking about optics, now's the time. So there are already outfits out there that are doing prescription lenses for other headsets that have already started taking pre-orders for PSVR 2 ones. I'm kind of really tempted to get some.
You should absolutely do it. It's great.
Is that a good buy?
Yeah. I mean, you can get, there's a wide range all the way from like kind of fly by night Chinese optician will grind your lenses for $15 places. Given what I know about your vision, you probably only want the distance vision. I don't think you want the up close for inside the you don't want to do bifocals inside the VR. I don't think. But I'm not. I don't know that. I don't know that it'll work right for you.
Okay.
Because of the way the eye tracking works.
Sure. So I have not had too much trouble with glasses. I guess I should mention, like, you've used a PSVR 1, like the comfort level, the putting on process, all pretty similar. Same.
Is it the same Halo thing with the twisty knob at the back?
Same tightening mechanism on the headband. Same kind of release to move the scope in and out.
Yeah,
that feels a little flimsier to me than the first one did, which is a little concerning. And it also feels just the headset feels a tad bit more front heavy.
Do they have headphones built in this time or no? They don't, right?
Same little earbuds that clip on, but you don't have to use them. It's also they plug into a generic stereo port, so I've just been using my Astro A40s with it for the most part. Yeah, but I mean, still, it's nice to have the headphones on the headset. Well, it's relatively inexpensive. So these earbuds do essentially clip in. Like they will permanently attach if that's all you want to use.
Yeah,
the earbuds will permanently attach.
But I don't want to share earbuds with other people. That's icky.
Oh, well, I can't help you there.
Yeah. So hold on, you asked me a question there and I completely lost it. Sorry.
Eye tracking? No.
Yeah, the eye tracking,
the lenses, the prescription lenses.
So the prescription lenses are if you use the headset a lot, the prescription lenses are a huge win. Okay. I bought a set for the Index. I'll see if I can find the link and put them in the show notes, because I'm never going to find it while we're on the call here. But it's a thing that I think Jeremy Williams recommended on the Tested podcast. And when I asked him about it, he was like, yes, absolutely do that.
Okay. Somebody, I think it was Luke on Discord, linked me to a place called Hans VR.
The one I think is VR Lenses Direct or something. I can't remember, but
okay. I'm sure a bunch of them are fine.
The other huge benefit is when you have glasses up close to the lenses in the headset, those lenses are really delicate. So there's a couple things you never do. You never have those lenses where they can catch outside sun, right? Because because they'll scorch the oh my God. They'll scorch the screen.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Like I store headsets with I get big microfibers and store them with the big microfiber inside the headset part. Okay. You like when you have your glasses, if your glasses are touching the lenses, something's going to get scratched. It's either going to be your glasses or the lenses.
Yeah.
And neither of those are great outcomes.
Yes, for sure.
Because they're not generally replaceable.
Yeah.
So yeah, using the clip-in lenses, especially if you're the only person who uses the headset, is fantastic. If you share the headset, it's a little more complicated. You have to take them in and out all the time. There's potential for damage there, and often the frames that you put the lenses into the headset, that you clip them into the headset with, like they used to be all 3D printed. I think now people are actually manufacturing them out of like machined plastic and stuff like that, or cast plastic even. But yeah, so. You know, your mileage may vary. I wouldn't spend like $300 on those, but I would totally spend 50 or 60 on that.
50 is what these that were linked to me are. Getting the headset on over glasses has been pretty much fine.
The Sony one was the best of all of them on the first wave of stuff, first few waves of stuff even.
My biggest problem with it, honestly, is that I'm just constantly smudging my glasses in the process of putting the headset on, and then you get in there and your glasses are a smeary mess.
Well, and they get mashed up closer to your eyes than you normally are, so your eyelashes wipe the inside of the lenses. It's like there's a bunch of bad news there.
Yeah, so I probably will spring for those lenses because I see myself using this headset dramatically more than the last
often.
One.
Yeah,
like the experience generally, the tracking, the optics, the quality of the screens, like the controllers, the kind of whole kit and caboodle is better enough that if they keep the games coming, I could see myself using this on a pretty frequent basis.
Well, yeah. And the fact that they did the eye tracking. So there's two things that I'm really excited about with this. One is the eye tracking, because that allows them to use the entirety of the horsepower of the PS5 in the place where your eye has the highest resolution.
Yes. Is that foveated or foveated?
Foveated rendering.
Foveated.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, because they're talking about the fovea, which is that center part of your retina.
I see.
The other thing is the controller. I mean, like the vibration on the headset's kind of interesting. I'm curious what you think about that, but like the controller design looked like it was actually really good.
That's not bad. It's my only knock against it is that if you've got the strap on and it's dangling from your wrist and you can't see the controller, meaning you're in a game.
Yeah.
It's hard to figure out how to maneuver your hand into the controller to grip it right.
Do they not show you your hands?
In some games they do. Like in Horizon, if you're sitting at the title screen, you see you don't see your hands, but you see the controllers floating in front of you. And that's enough. But if you can't see anything, because there's 2 or 3 different ways your hand could go into that hole.
See, that's interesting because that's a platform choice. Or it was when I was still making VR software. Like Oculus would require you show hands, and Steam let you show either controllers or hands. Or actually, Steam lets you do whatever the hell you want. But
this seems like it's probably up to the developer so far. Generally
speaking, it's good to show something because like a lot of players won't know what the buttons. Like you if you're building games for normal people to play, you have to give them something that they can look down at and see what buttons are what, so they know where their fingers are. Is there touch sensitivity on the top of the controller so you can see where your thumb is?
No, there's not.
There
are no touch pads of any kind. There's an analog stick on each side, 2 face buttons, like the PS button for menu and like options and share, like kind of standard DualSense stuff.
But the top doesn't have the capacitive touch stuff on it.
There's no touch.
Because on the
except for the finger tracking, if you want to count that.
Well, that counts. But on the Index and the Oculus controllers, all of the tops of all the buttons and the tops of all the sticks and all of that stuff, even the non-touch area is still capacitive, so it can tell that your finger is on. Like you get like this is how Oculus does all their hand presence stuff. So you know where you could look down with the headset on and see where your thumb is because the controller knows where your thumb is resting, even if you're not putting any input in.
Okay, this does not have that. That sounds really nice.
Yeah, it ends up being, it's one of those things that sounds really stupid, except if you can't see your hand and you need to know whether you're on the X or the A button, it turns out to be really important.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But the finger and hand tracking stuff is how are they doing the hand tracking with capacitive on the grips?
I don't know how they're doing the finger tracking actually. All they track, as far as I can tell, all they're tracking is hand open, hand closed. There's no individual finger tracking. And so basically just moving your fingers in and out, it'll sense that. And then there's also the L1 and R1 are basically the grip buttons. If you kind of squeeze a fist, you'll be pushing L1 and R1 in, and they're triggers as well. It sounds like these controllers are maybe a little more limited than what's on the PC, but
So it says they do have finger touch detection on the buttons.
Do they?
The games might just not be doing it.
Okay, so I guess I haven't seen anything. I'm trying to think.
Or maybe you just haven't noticed. It's one of those things that if they do it right, you shouldn't notice it.
Well, so there, like I said, there have been very few instances where I see the actual Sense controllers in virtual space.
Yeah.
By and large, if I see anything, it's like in-game hand models or like an in-game gun.
Okay.
I think Horizon, I want to say like Horizon at the title screen is the only time I remember seeing the literal, 3D versions of the literal controllers in front of my face.
Did they do like an Astros type game to showcase? That's a bummer.
I think they should have invested in an Astros Playroom VR update.
Yeah, that was such a good showcase, and it sets the tone for all the developers who come after this first wave.
Yeah,
because it teaches them the language of the platform, which is, I think, really important.
I mean, Astro's Playroom is kind of modeled after Astrobot Rescue Mission, which is that Astro game on the first PSVR that everybody loves so much because it's awesome. And I wish and I've said this like 5 times now, the hardware, all that PlayStation hardware, that kind of history of PlayStation, the Labo and Astro's Playroom. One of the coolest things I have ever seen in a game, because that hardware is so like exactingly detailed.
Oh yeah.
And operable in a lot of cases. You can like inject discs and open lids and do all kinds of stuff. Those things are like begging to be picked up and like held right up to your face and played with in VR. And I would give anything that, and everybody who has a PS5 has that game already. Like, it just seems like a no-brainer to me that they could have just invested in, like, here's a thing you will have if you buy this headset,
or update the version that came with the PSV. I mean, look,
this one, yeah.
These are USB-C internal batteries on the controllers?
Yeah.
Does the charge last okay?
This seems fine-ish. People have been reporting like 4 or 5 hours. It's kind of consistent, more or less, with what I've seen. I had an issue out of the box where my right one was dying a lot faster than the left one. I can't. Okay. It's been hard to tell if that's still the case. It seems like it's kind of evening out now.
Okay.
I'm not quite clear what's going on there.
Does it have adaptive triggers?
Yes, it's got similar haptics and trigger resistance to the DualSense. I should mention, I saw there's some articles going around. There's like a ton of people on Reddit who are having a separate issue with the right controller, like kind of not being recognized at all.
Well, that's bad.
But it seems like so many people that it might be a software issue and hopefully not a hardware defect. Okay. I don't know. TBD.
Yeah. There you go. I'm trying to think what else is the buttons are split on 2 on each side.
Yeah. Two face button per.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Should we talk about games at all? Do you want to hear about games?
I mean, look, if the games aren't any good, then there's no reason to buy anything ever. So just to be clear, the last thing we should talk about, there's a microphone on the headset.
Yes.
The only thing you plug in is into that USB-C that's on the front of the PlayStation 5, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Does it work with the one on the back too?
I don't know.
I wonder if they're hot wired.
I could try it and get back to you.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to, but I'm curious if they have like a weird.
Now that I'm worried about that port on the front, maybe I should try that just so I'll know I could still use that thing if that port dies.
Yeah, I mean, my experience with USB ports are generally pretty sturdy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. I am. Is the head vibration like worth talking about?
I have never noticed it that I can remember, except when you turn the thing on, because it vibrates in a pretty pronounced way when you turn it on. And I'm sure some games are using it. It's just not leaping out at me.
Does it still do the thing where you can have like stuff on the TV and stuff in the headset, and it's different stuff in the headset than on the TV?
I think that's going to be game dependent. I don't think there's anything at launch. Are you talking about like actual asymmetric multiplayer? Yeah,
like the Astro's Playroom thing where like one person could be the monster and the other 4 people sitting on the couch could drive the characters as you chased them or whatever.
I want to say there is nothing at launch that does that. Obviously that could change.
Yeah.
It's totally possible. They actually, one interesting thing they do, you can add a giant border to the TV output, which it helps tracking. It's like it's a giant fat border that's got all kinds of crazy like
because it has the cameras so it can see it has weird fiducials in the border. That's neat.
So if you were using it in front of your TV and you're having tracking issues, you can turn that on and it should help it.
So here's a stupid question, but Could you like take that out in your backyard and run an extension cord to the PlayStation and not have to bring a TV and it'll still work?
I've been playing it with my TV and receiver turned off. So
okay.
I think the answer is yes.
That's cool.
You definitely don't have to have that on for tracking. That's just an aid. So I don't know what the max length on USB-C is.
Yeah.
For USB-A, I think. Well, for USB 2, it's like 15 feet, and it might be shorter for USB 3. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's hard. I will tell you, it's hard to find. It depends on whether it's a 3.1 or 3.2. It's hard to find cables longer than about 10 feet that are USB 3. The faster versions of USB 3.
I think it is something like 3 meters is maybe the max for 3.
Yeah, and that'll include what's already hanging out of the headset.
Yeah,
how long is the wire? Do you know?
Would estimate maybe 10 feet or so.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but it's decent.
Last thing is, what's the FOV like? Is it like looking through a pair of swimming goggles? I know they say it's 110 degrees, but that doesn't mean a whole lot to a lot of people.
You can definitely notice the edges of the screens if you're looking for it.
Okay.
But it's fine. Like
okay.
I tend to just tune that out after a couple minutes.
Yeah, you kind of don't know. You just start moving your head instead of using your eyes for stuff.
Yeah. So
cool.
So there's only one game that you can't play on a headset you already own, and that's Horizon Call of the Mountain.
Well, I mean, but I assume that people aren't buying 3 headsets for their house, right?
No. I meant you specifically.
I specifically can't already play. Okay.
Not you, the general audience, but you, Will Smith, you can play just about everything that I have been playing. And
as the only person who in the world who isn't super into Horizon, like I love the art in Horizon, but I kind of meh on the game. Like what's the game?
I've been really impressed with it. There's absolutely budget behind it. Like it looks really nice. It's one of the better looking games I've seen in VR. I mean, it's not, if you saw it on a TV, it looks fine. It's not mind blowing, but it's just higher fidelity than what you expect in VR in particular.
Okay.
Like there are character interactions, there's story stuff, and the character models look quite good. They animate almost as well as they do in regular Horizon.
When you're talking to another character, can you like walk through?
I don't want to spoil.
Did they react to that?
I don't want to spoil this. I wanted to show it on the Next Lander streams we did this week. The way the saves work, I couldn't get back to a place where there were characters, and then I got back there, and it was the middle of the night, and everybody was gone. So they react to it. I tried.
Okay, they're like, "Hey, get out of my face," or whatever.
Well, they lean away from you. So the only place I've been able to do it, it has choice-driven conversations, kind of similar to the real Horizon.
Do you use like a menu to navigate choice, or do you yell at the TV?
It's menu driven, but you can use your eyes. Like that game uses eye tracking for all the menus.
How does that work? How does that feel?
It's very responsive. It's very. There's a little calibration utility when you do the setup initially that lets you test. There's just a big radial bunch of dots you can look around at, and also you can see your eyes in the middle and see them blinking and moving.
Is it like look and hold to select stuff, or do you click a button when you've chosen the thing you want?
It's just a soft select, but like doing that little utility with all the dots, it's like basically real time, like just about as fast as you can move your eyes around it.
Yeah, eye trackers are pretty cool.
It's very responsive. It's actually cognitively been a big adjustment in games where I'm not expecting it to be there, and it's like sometimes you'll like button over to a menu and hit the button without really looking at it, or like when you're looking at something else. Mm-hmm. And there have been times when I like glanced at another option at the last second before I hit the button and I accidentally picked the wrong menu thing. Like it's just something you have to get used to. It's fine. It works really well. But what's the game? No, you were asking about walking through people. So when you do those dialogue scenes, it kind of like fades to black and back up to where you're rooted in place talking to them. But of course, you can kind of walk out of the place you're rooted. Yeah. Because I think outside of those dialogue scenes, it won't let you get close to them. But I could be wrong. Anyway, they'll like lean back away from you in a way it's like really socially awkward. Like you're getting too close to them, and you're like the stereotypical close talker or whatever. Like it's like
that's
Seinfeld,
fantastic.
Like it's weirdly like realistic in this video game character is annoyed with me getting in their face.
I like that was the thing with the Star Wars ILM X Lab stuff where like you're talking to Darth Vader, and if you like walk up and get right up in Darth Vader's face, he doesn't react.
Interesting. Okay.
You got to react because like there's no like it immediately breaks it when you do something stupid like that.
So
anyway.
I'm not suggesting they necessarily implemented like reactive social behavior here. That might just be some collision thing or something that's happening automatically.
It's still better than not having
the net effect. Right? Yeah. And I just didn't have enough room in my space to walk any closer. So it's possible you could eventually like see the inside of somebody's teeth or whatever. But so the game is first person, of course. It's basically a lot of climbing and a lot of bow combat is primarily the game so far. That's basically what I've seen.
Not the traps and stuff.
What's that?
Not setting the traps and lures and all the stuff that you did in the first main game.
Well, so the combat is super simplified. Like you lose locomotion when you get into combat. And you can only strafe left and right in kind of an arc around the enemies. But there's a possibility that they will roll out traps like that. I have arrow types, like you've got shock and blaze arrows, like the original game. The combat has been pretty fast paced and snappy and like kind of having to draw and knock an arrow as I'm like strafing away to try to not get killed.
Is it like reach over your shoulder to grab the arrow and pull it? That's really fun.
It feels pretty good. And it's like, it's fast enough that it's kind of demanding and cool.
I mean, we talk about verbs a lot with VR development, you know, because in like Call of Duty, your verbs are jump and run and open and shoot, right? Or maybe throw a grenade. Like are games like Horizon using more verbs than in like the normal flat game?
You mean like non-VR games?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to compare to other VR games I had played. I
mean, but both are valid.
Horizon is mostly climb. There's jump, which I had not seen in a VR game.
Okay.
The thing I was going to say earlier is I never played the climb. I don't know if you did.
Yeah, I played a lot of it. It's really fun.
So I've seen some comparisons to the climb and this game. So that
there's a couple of really good kind of climbing games out there.
That might be a point of reference for people who've played those games. But so there are cases where you'll like jump a chasm and then it'll expect you to like pull out your pickaxe and like grab the cliffside before you fall. So there's kind of jump, climb, shoot bow, pick up physics objects, like physically modeled objects, and throw them around if you want. And that's kind of it. How
do they handle movement when you're not movement desync between the player character in the game and obviously you're not jumping across your living room. So do you blink or is it like it just lerps? It's like a real fast, smooth movement with no acceleration. Are you getting motion sick?
Not in that game.
Question.
The only times I've had motion sickness issues are in Gran Turismo, driving a car.
Okay.
And Kayak VR Mirage, which I generally think is awesome.
Yeah, those games are really cool, but some people immediately flip out with motion sickness on them, and I don't exactly. So the rule on motion is generally that if you do linear, like immediate acceleration, there's no acceleration from stationary to moving. Generally, people are okay, especially if there's like a cockpit or some frame around them that gives them an anchor point. But if you do like gentle acceleration, that's real bad for some people.
And that's kind of exactly how a kayak works because you're kind of picking up speed as you paddle. That game is awesome.
Yeah, same thing for the car.
Other than that, though, because it's very physicsy. Like
it's kind of stupid, right? Because it's like that Simpsons joke about Night Boat, where all the crimes seem to happen next to canals.
Sure.
But also, it's a video game, so who cares?
That game looks great. I guess actually that came out on Steam VR last summer, so that's been out for a bit.
They did a Quest version, or at least a Quest predecessor. I don't think it's that exact same game.
Okay, that's just a nice chill paddle around in some very pretty environments kind of thing.
But don't you also have to murk people? I think as well.
There are kayak races. But those are you might be thinking of. Oh no, you're thinking of. You're thinking of the Takiak.
I'm thinking of the Takiak.
Yes, exactly. I hope that game comes out on this. What is the name of that game?
Oh God,
Kayak VR Mirage is a very chill, low key, like just hang out in.
Phantom Covert Ops is what it's called.
Please let that come out on.
It is basically Splinter Cell in a kayak.
Oh, that was is that Oculus exclusive? It looks like it might be.
It was from the people who made Shooty Fruity, I think, but I'm not sure.
I think that might still be an Oculus only game. Actually, that's unfortunate.
Oh, boo! Anytime I hear kayaks, I think I'm gonna get my giant rifle out and murk people.
Who would not think of the Kayak at every opportunity?
Yeah. It's a genre just on the cusp of explosion.
Yeah. So I mean, generally, if you have a nice PC headset, like you probably don't need to get one of these things. Like Horizon is cool, but it is by no means go spend $600 cool.
And like Gran Turismo 7 obviously is a PlayStation exclusive, but also there's a bunch, like everything from iRacing to like Assetto Corso, and most of the racing games on PC support VR.
You're not starved for VR racing on PC. No Man's Sky has gotten a very nice new VR update, but that's also on PC.
Yeah, even Forza Horizons, the new Forza Horizon supports VR on PC.
Oh wow, shit, that's crazy. Resident Evil Village got a pretty nice VR update, which I don't think is on PC, or it might actually. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, those Resident Evil VR games have been real up and down for me.
This one is a lot more elaborate than 7 was. I played through all of 7 in VR. This one is much more independent hand controls, like flashlight and reloading your gun manually and stuff like that. So it seems cool enough. The Resident Evil 4 remake that's coming out next month just announced there will be a VR mode for that, although not at launch.
Okay.
So there's that. Like there's games. There's probably, I'm just super ballparking here, 20
like
20
the
to
list of
20,
stuff
25
they have, like
things out now, maybe 30 things or even more than that, maybe to play.
And like there's a lot of updates for PSVR 1 games that people went back in and did the work to do the port over. So like Vacation Sim and
Job Simulator.
I think Tetris Effect gets
Tetris Effect and Res Infinite are paid updates. So those are $10 a piece.
I feel
so they're not. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say there's small studios.
Oh yeah, they totally are. But also they did work on those. So Res Infinite has eye tracking for aiming now, which is interesting.
Oh man, that's dope.
It's cool. It took me by surprise, and it very much was kind of hard to get used to. I think you might be like it'll be probably subject to your taste if you want to keep using it or not. But they did that. Like Tetris Effect is getting a bunch of new modes, so it's not just VR support that you're paying for there. Let's see. There are a decent number of updates here, like Thumper, that stuff of that nature.
I'm kind of like bummed that like some of the real bangers of the last year on Quest and Steam, like the Last Clockwinder and stuff like that aren't showing up here.
Oh no, Last Clockwinder is. Oh, actually,
it is. Okay.
Let me check the release dates. Last Clockwinder is definitely coming.
Oh yeah, it is. I was looking under T and it's under L. Sorry,
I'm not sure if it was at launch or not.
You get, but like Moss and Moss 2. How did the No Man's Sky? How did you spend any time with that?
It's so rad. Like,
is the perf good?
Yeah, it runs totally beautifully. But like they integrated a lot of the UI into just like cool, goofy sci-fi stuff. Like all the menus pop out of your wrist now. Like. You hold your left wrist up and point at it with your right hand, and a big holographic menu just pops out, and it tracks to your hand movement. So you're like,
everybody loves a good diegetic menu.
It's so awesome. Like the analysis visor is the same way. Like basically all the in-game computer stuff is now like kind of holographic stuff you can manipulate. And of course, I think this was in the old VR mode, like all the stuff in the cockpit. You're grabbing the flight stick and like. Grabbing the release on the canopy to get out and stuff. Like it's awesome.
That's really cool.
So yeah.
So how much is it? It's like $400.
No, $550 for just the headset, $600 for the Horizon bundle. Yeah.
But the headset comes with the controllers.
Yes, controllers are thrown in there. So you
can't buy it without the controllers this time. Thank God.
Almost the Res and Tetris were the only games I found that did not require the new controllers. Because my controllers were not charged enough to use out of the box. So I finished setup and immediately it was like, well, your controllers are too dead to use. Charge them, please. And so I could only play Tetris and Res. Anyway.
Does it come with a stand for the controllers?
No, that's another $50 charging stand.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, it sounds interesting. Like it sounds like they actually made a really compelling headset this go around.
Much better than the first one. Much, much better. Is it it's comparable to PC stuff. Like I was going to say, is it better than the PC stuff? Not having used it myself, but looking at specs and reading people's experiences, absolutely not. Like it's competitive with PC headsets, but not superior.
Well, the eye tracking, the eye tracking is a big deal. The other thing is, like let's see, the current kind of like Windows mixed reality preferred headset is the HP Reverb G2. Yes. Which is 500. I think it lists for $600. Is usually around 500 these days. Yeah, those
things are cheap. I got my mixed reality headset is much older, but I got that thing for like $200. Those go on sale a lot and stuff. That
was also because it was on closeout. Those Lenovo's were. I bought one of those when it was really cheap too. The big thing for me is that they actually come with good controllers, and the only thing you're going to get comparable controllers on, like the mixed reality controllers, aren't great. The Valve Index controllers are really nice. The Oculus controllers are pretty good too. Yeah. So it's I don't know. It's kind of a weird place for this thing to be.
And just like VR in general is also still like in this weird in between where
it's in the trough of despair, man.
It has not broken through and become mainstream to the point that they would fund a lot of big lavish games, which would be cool to see on hardware that's nice like this. But it's also still keeping on, like it's like it didn't die. There is a VR market. It's just not huge.
Well, okay. And they have like the fitness stuff. They have Pistol Whip. Do they have Beat Saber, right?
The Beat Saber's out on the first headset. I don't know when that update is coming out or if it's even.
It is not on the list that you sent of announced games, but I think that was last updated. I don't
even know if actually
2 days ago
the update has been announced or not.
I mean, Facebook owns them now, so they may not do it.
It is okay. Yeah, so actually that did get announced last month.
Okay,
excuse me. There will be an update for that.
That kind of stuff is really compelling. I don't know. I'm excited about this. It seems like a good update to the venerable PlayStation VR platform.
I'll give them credit. I think this was the case in the first headset as well. The entirety of the surface that contacts your face and head is rubberized.
Yeah.
So reasonably easy to wipe down. I sure did start sweating by the end of that launch day stream we did.
I bet.
So I've always been a little wary of doing fitness in VR just because it's such expensive hardware, but this at least is fairly easy to clean.
Well, yeah, and I was gonna say that like the price, $500 is expensive for a console accessory. It's cheap for a VR headset of this quality.
Yeah,
right. Like you're in the like better than a Quest, I think probably. Or at least the money that you're spending is all going to the Quest, unlike the people that buy Quests to plug into a PC.
I guess that's kind of where I've landed with this in terms of like, is it worth the money? Like, because this plus a PS5 is a good $1,000 or more.
Easy.
Which obviously is more than a standalone Quest 2. But if you're going to use a Quest 2 with a PC to get the best graphics, then that suddenly becomes way more than this.
And the Index is still like $1,400. I think it's expensive.
Like the Index and the Vive Pro 2 and stuff are still quite expensive. So.
Oh, the Index is $999 with everything you need, not counting the PC,
right? Which could easily be way more than a PS5. So it's still $1,000 is a lot of money, but it's still on the low end of what a good VR experience is going to run you. Let's just hope that the games keep coming. They announced 15 new games for this thing this week, on top of a good number that were already announced that aren't out yet. So I'm hopeful.
I mean, from like the Whisper Network tells me that they're funding a lot of stuff.
That's perfect. That means Sony. They meaning Sony.
Yeah, meaning Sony.
That's all you want to hear. And I hope they're making stuff because again, like Astrobot Rescue Mission was amazing and they made that. Like Sony knows how to make good games, and I really hope that they throw their resources into doing so for this thing.
Yeah, I think they get it. Like I'm kind of curious that it's like some of the better content from the PSVR one that they made internally didn't get ported over. But I think I'd rather those teams work on new stuff that maybe is coming to smooth out because there's usually a lull after a new launch where like there's a lot of stuff in the launch window and then it's kind of quiet for a while. And like if an updated London Heist or a new thing from that team hits in that lull, that's cool.
I don't know if you ever played the Until Dawn What was that? Until Dawn Rush of Blood, I think was the name?
That was too scary for me. The Rush of Blood thing.
So they're doing that same type of game for Dark Pictures. It's coming out next month, I want to say. And that's using the eye tracking for some fun horror stuff from what I've seen.
Great.
Maybe you don't want to play that one then.
No, thank you. That doesn't sound good for me.
But anyway, it seems like there is software development going on, and that's exciting. The last thing real quick here before we go that I want to talk about is feels like a lot of people kind of, I totally understand why. Like the idea now that this thing is just USB-C of plugging it into a PC and being able to use it as a PC headset is very enticing.
That seems plausible.
So real quick, if you want to know where that stuff is at, The Verge, a bunch of people have tried this. The Verge ran an article. They tried plugging the USB-C port on this or cord on this thing into the port on an AMD card. I think it was a 6800 XT.
Yeah.
Windows saw it as a kind of generic 1080p monitor.
That's just because it doesn't recognize it. So it does what it thinks is the MVP.
Yeah. So you tell me what the implications are there. I don't know if that
the display is never the display is not going to be the problem. The problem is going to be talking to the IMU and the tracking and all that stuff.
So we'll get to that. I mean, they speculated that means that it's at least, not encrypting the video signal. You tell me if that's plausible or not.
I mean, yeah, but that's not, they were not going to encrypt the videos.
Yeah,
the thing they'll encrypt is the data off of the thing. There's no real reason for them to do that. Yeah. But
so the developer of, do you know how to pronounce this? It's the driver that let you use the PSVR 1 on a PC.
I would call that Ivory.
Ivory,
I think.
It's lowercase I, capital VR, lowercase Y. I guess Ivory.
Ivory.
Yeah, sure. The developer of that thing chimed in on Reddit not long ago about this.
Yeah.
And he also actually just tweeted to somebody on like 2 days ago saying he's going to start working soon on seeing if he can get this thing working. But this Reddit post is a whole lot of do not get your hopes up on this. It's going to be years, if ever, before this works on a PC.
I mean, unless Sony decides that they're going to here's the thing. It depends on how much Sony's subsidizing this thing, right? If they're making money on this, then they should put it out. And as soon as they reach the saturation where it's not in high demand on the console side for console users, there's no downside to them releasing this because they just keep making more money if they sell it as a PC headset. They're selling PC games.
Totally.
The DualSense 5 works as a PC controller.
Totally, if they're making money on the headset, but that seems like a big, I mean, you tell me. I have no idea what the bill of materials for something like this is these days, but it seems like it can't be a high.
I mean, they're not using a cheap panel, and they had to build custom controllers. So I don't know.
This cannot be a high margin device right now, right?
I would assume not, but also they're not Microsoft and don't tend to they don't tend to subsidize stuff too much, is my understanding.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is
yes. I think everybody kind of stopped eating a loss on hardware except for Microsoft a while ago, right? So they probably are making some money on it.
I'm really curious. Like it's a really interesting position because I have a fast USB-C port on the front of my computer. This is better than most of the headsets I could buy, and it's half the price of the ones that it's most competitive with.
So actually, something I was going to ask you, because you mentioned the port on the front of your computer. Do you know if in a future where this guy gets a driver working that makes this thing work on a PC, would it have to go into a USB-C out on a graphics card for latency reasons?
No, that's the whole point of it. Depends. It has to go into a port that's wired right. But if it's wired into the PCI Express bus, right, should be fine. Okay. Which means it has to be USB 3.2 or 3. Remember they renamed how USB-C 3 works a few years ago, and it's stupid now. But it has to be the Gen 2 ones, I think, in order for the video stuff to work at the right speed.
3.2 Gen 2.
3.2 Gen 2 or 3.1 Gen C or look, man, I don't know. It has to be the good port. It can't be the crap. It can't just be a physical port. It's at $500, it's the same price as a Reverb, right? Yeah. But it works on your PlayStation 5. I don't know. I'm into it. I'm glad it seems like they did a good job.
Yeah.
And the controllers being good the controllers being good and being required will make a big difference because it means people will actually build games for them. Yeah. Where the Move controllers were kind of hinky at best. And you couldn't expect anybody to have them.
Right. And so that's why I think for example, the Resident Evil 8 mode is way better than the 7 one because those controllers are there and they can build a good motion control experience around them.
There's a lot to be said about being able to pick something up and throwing it at something.
That's for sure, man. That's still my favorite thing in VR, either picking something up and throwing it or breaking it or both.
Yeah,
and like,
exactly. I like poking my head through the wall.
That's fun too. Or, like stepping outside of a vehicle you shouldn't be stepping outside of is always a good time. I said this on the stream. Somebody just make a rage room in VR. Like, those places you can go rent time to just break shit.
Do you, despite all your rage, you're still just a Brad in a cage?
Just make a thing that is nothing but very physically accurate breaking of stuff.
Wow. It's dark, Brad. I didn't expect this of you.
Would be fun as hell. Like, get some fire going in there, a lot of glass, ceramics.
Wow.
Look, there's a lot of compute out there now. You can do the physics.
You know what else you can do?
What's that?
You can support this podcast if you would like to become an official TechPod patron. You can go to patreon.com/TechPod. We are 100% listener supported. And as we do every month, we thank all of our patrons. So thank you, patrons.
Yeah, thank you, patrons.
But we especially thank our executive producer tier patrons, including Octothorpe Bunny Crimes, Andrew Slosky, Paddle Creek Games Makers of Fractured Veil, David Allen, James Kamek, Joel Krauska, Just Wedge, Nick Johnston, and Twinkle Twinkie. And this isn't a Q&A episode, but I believe it is our last episode of the month. So we also thank our associate producer tier patrons, including Alejandro Navarro, Andre M. Burke, Arthur Keys, Ben Tallman, Dave Ulian, Eric Klein, Graham Banks, Jad Rita, Jason Rooney, The Ref, Jay Maybe, Matt Walker, parentheses, Walkman 8080, close parentheses, Nathan Phelps, Sanchit Kumar, Steve Lynn, Thomas Shea, Tom Fuller, Tom Hilton, and Travis Rosner. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate you.
Yes, we do.
And yeah, the podcast is listener supported. So without you all, we wouldn't be here doing this thing that we do every week. And we I wouldn't have gotten to ask Brad a bunch of silly questions about the PSVR 2.
If you think that's exciting, wait until the patron episode this month.
Ooh.
You know how deep down the Vim rabbit hole I am?
Oh no. Oh,
it's awesome.
Oh no.
I've never been this excited about a text editor.
I can't believe this is becoming one of those podcasts now.
I was looking up the Glob man page last night.
Oh, you could go glob yourself. We'll be back next week with another episode of the podcast. See you all then. Then. We'll see you all then.